Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 22 of GT Masters, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of GT class, or at least GT style, racing or competition spec vehicles. And in this particular pick, straight off the bat, we are featuring one of the best cars, I would say, in this entire series. One of the best race cars in the game, a car which is appreciated by some, but still isn't used as much as you might expect, given just how good it actually is. Now, I'm, to be honest, not a huge fan of the BMW Z4, either as a road car or a race car. I never have been. I don't think it's a bad car, it's just not my kind of car. As a race car, though, in this particular form, the premium spec GT3 version, it is a brilliant racing car. Now, the engine is a 4.4 litre, and it can be tuned up to 963 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful GT class race cars in the game. That's significantly more power than you'd probably expect this car to have. It also puts out just under 600 foot-pounds of torque, and weighs in at just under 1200 kilos, so it's not the lightest of the series, but it's far from being the heaviest. It's actually pretty well placed as far as weight. It puts out over 800 horsepower per tonne, and the PP fully tuned is a pretty high 684. But even though that PP is pretty high, I would actually say it's justifiably so, because this is a brilliant car. That 963 horsepower is no guarantee of good performance. There are plenty of GT class machines and various other racing vehicles which have big power, which just don't have the performance that you'd expect from said power, such as NASCARs, for instance. They put out around 900 horsepower, but the top speed isn't particularly good on them, ironically enough, given the type of racing that they generally do. The top speed on a NASCAR is around 225 under its own power. Various other race cars in this series as well with big power, such as the Camaro LM race car, the RX-8 race car, even some of the Corvette race cars aren't actually as quick as you'd expect them to be. They often tend to be around 225, 230, and sometimes even in the best case scenarios don't do much more than 240, even in the case of cars which you would expect to be a lot quicker than that, such as the Ford GT LM race car. This car, though, is extremely fast. It's one of the quickest GT class cars in the game, in fact. It can do around 260 miles per hour under its own power, which is insanely quick, and far quicker than you'd expect it to be. In fact, in a straight line, it's pretty much on par with a Mercedes SLS GT3, which, if you think about it, you'd probably expect the Mercedes to be significantly quicker. It kind of makes sense that the Mercedes is that fast. It looks the part, it has the spec, but this car, to me, just doesn't. It looks like probably 230, 240 miles per hour at best, but it does far more than that. And that fact alone means that for certain tracks, such as most notably the Le Mans, but others as well, it is a dominant force. This car, you have to bear in mind, has the same kind of top speed as an SLS GT3, a Zonda R, and some of the other biggest and most powerful cars in this category. It's faster than most of the GTR race cars. You probably wouldn't expect that, but it is the case. It's incredibly rapid in a straight line. The acceleration is also fantastic on this car, given just how much sheer power it has. Add on top of that the fact that it only costs 350,000 credits, and this is an insanely good value car. And that's one of the reasons why I included it in my best value car list video. What about for the handling, though? Because if the handling is awful, it kind of breaks the bank on the rest of it. Well, it has good handling. One of the best, in fact, of the series, I would say. It is a little bit prone to understeer, but to be honest, I consider that a good thing in a race car. If you're going to have one or the other, it is always, as far as I'm concerned, better to have a car that naturally understeers than one that oversteers, because as fun as oversteer may be, it's just not efficient. Understeer, on the other hand, can be worked with. You can use that to outpace your opponents, because when their tyres are running down, when they're in wet weather and various other circumstances, they're going to be slipping around all over the place, or at least using bare minimum throttle to counteract those tendencies. With a car that naturally has very heavy steering, you've got so much more leeway to actually drive smoothly and use more of that power, and that is the case with this car. It feels much more stuck to the tarmac, much more grounded, and much more consistent as well with the handling. Some race cars can surprise you sometimes with how their handling snaps from one tendency to another. For instance, a car that will be very heavy at low speeds but then suddenly spin out for no apparent reason. This car doesn't do that. It's dependably heavy. Now, being overly heavy isn't good, of course, but at least it gives you a base to work with. You know what you're getting with the car, you know what you have to do to counteract that, and you can work with it. And it works brilliantly. The fact that it has heavy steering naturally makes it a perfect choice for tracks like the Nürburgring Ring, where you're constantly jumping around, shifting the weight of the car left to right from corner to corner. In a car that's overly twitchy, doing those kind of rapid successive left to right movements will make the car spin out. In a heavy car, it never will. You can slam on those brakes, you can slam on the throttle, you can throw the car into the corner, and you pretty much know that oversteer is never going to be an issue. All you have to do is brake a little bit earlier and let it coast around the corners more because of that heaviness. That is certainly the case with this car, and I'm not saying that having overly heavy steering is a good thing. Of course not. But the handling in this car is certainly dependable. It has tons of grip, especially when you remember that this is putting out nearly 1,000 horsepower, and does so very well. It copes with its power excellently. So all in all, you get a premium car, an extremely powerful car, with an amazing top speed for its class, tons of draft potential, and a ridiculously cheap price. 350 grand is insanely good value. So if you need a dependable all-round GT machine, definitely check out the Z4 GT3. But that's it overall for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.